So in this video, I would like to offer you folks a particular tool to maybe help you in crafting your argument, in building your persuasive essay. It's called the Toulmin Model. Toulmin was a rhetorician, a theorist, somebody who helped advance certain rhetorical principles in the 20th century. Brought things a little bit out of the classical model that had been happening before, and dominated some things before. So under the handout section of GoalNet here, there's a Toulmin Model handout. So this is going to function in two ways. One is first just to explain to you what it is and what it pertains to and provide you with an example. And then after you've written your essay, going back to this and using it and trying to use it to identify certain things. So I'm anticipating you folks watching the video, getting an understanding of Toulmin's argument model in helping you to maybe structure your own arguments. And then after you've just written it, maybe you've forgotten about it a little bit, maybe just trying to get it down and write certain things to your argument, not necessarily having the Toulmin model in your head, going back and opening this document up again and trying to take stock of not really how you did, but are you doing some of the things that Toulmin outlines here? And if there aren't some things there, what do you still need to do? And that might help. So this is Toulmin's argument model: claim, support, warranting assumption, backing, modal qualifier, and a rebuttal. So these are all the things that make up an argument in a sense, according to Toulmin. And so I'm just going to go through each of these individually for you and also provide you with an example. So claim, according to textbook, and this is not actually our textbook that's referenced here, but it's another textbook called, oh goodness, it's already escaped me. It's not Inventing Arguments, but it's one of the first-year composition textbooks that's out there. And according to that text, claim is a conclusion whose merit must be established, an assertion about something. Okay, so a conclusion whose merit must be established, an assertion about something. A claim is really something that you are asking your audience to accept, whether it's that the Patriots are a Super Bowl contending team, even though they weren't this year. They contended, but that was about it. Or whatever it is that this is the best brand of something. Whatever it is, you're trying to get an audience to accept some type of claim that you're making, some type of thing. And this is where you begin your argument. So, for example, let's just say we were to say the cost of college tuition should be more affordable. That's a claim that you're making. It should be more affordable, but that initial claim will often be challenged, and that's okay. People won't just accept something as truth. It needs to be proven to them, particularly if you want them to act on your claim, whether they're changing some type of policy or opinion or inciting some kind of action. So that's where that component comes in. So later on, after you write your essay, go back, look through, and see if you've actually stated a claim. Okay. The next thing, support. Support is appeals, evidence, and examples that help the reader accept the claim. Okay, so support, I'm asking you in this particular essay to bring in various forms of support. You could have one online source of something that came from Google that you typed into a search engine, but it's a reputable source that you found. It could be a scholarly article. It could be an interview you have with somebody. It could be a clip from a documentary that you find on YouTube. Whatever it might be, you're pulling in all these multiple points of support. And we've been focusing more or less on this point, building or scaffolding towards this point, because you had to do a little bit of utilizing sources in the previous paper. Now we're exploding that a little bit and having you do even more with it. Okay, so this is data, this is evidence, this is facts, statistics, anecdotes, and these things demonstrate the truth on which the claim is based, as well as the way in which an audience is being persuaded. So are they being persuaded through emotions and pathos, reasoning, logos, credibility, ethos, right? So an example of this: in 1978, a student could attend a state-run university for approximately $2,450 a year. Today, at that same institution, a student will pay $30,000 a year, which is an increase in college tuition by roughly 1,120%. And we have our citation there, okay? So you have a bit of evidence. So you originally stated a claim, okay? The cost of college tuition should be more affordable, and you provide the support for that claim. In 1978, a student could attend a state-run institution, etc., etc. So you give the contrast. Here's what it used to cost. Here's what it costs now. Okay. A warranting assumption. It's really a statement that could be expressed or it could be implied that connects the claim and support in a logical and acceptable way, allowing the audience to accept the claim. And this is a little tricky. It's a little more of a gray area because sometimes, again, it's assumed. It's an assumption. It's not necessarily something that's stated all the time. So it maybe gets a little bit lost on us. And so the warranting assumption essentially links the data, support, and evidence together and answers the question, why does that data, mean your claim is true? We might just assume it's true, but why is really getting at that question. The warranting assumption can be based on various appeals, so whether it's ethos or logos or pathos or appeals to values that can connect the communicator to the audience. And in many instances, as I said, it is implied, it's implicit, it's unstated. Okay, so the cost of college tuition puts students in large sums of debt for long periods of time. We say that college tuition should be more affordable. We provide support in that at one time it cost this, now it costs this, this huge percentage of an increase. Okay, so what are you assuming there? That it should be more affordable, it's too high, and it's putting students into a lot of debt, which is making them not be able to get off their feet sooner. It's making them have to go live at home right after college. They're having difficulty finding jobs to pay back that debt, etc. Right? So these are all things that we're assuming. We might not say those things, but that's what we're getting at. Okay? The backing, it's even more support, really. More evidence, more things that back up the claim and also support that warranting assumption. Okay, so evidence that supports a warranting assumption. So backing refers often to that additional support. So an example, according to CNN, out of the survey, more than 1,000 colleges, 98 colleges said their 2010 graduating class owed an average of more than $35,000, and 73 colleges reported that more than 90% of students graduated with some amount of debt. For those owing $35,000 and looking to pay their tuition debt within 10 years, they will need to pay approximately $300 to $400 a month, depending on interest rates. So again, our warranting assumption is that students are being driven into large amounts of debt by going to college. Okay? So more support of that. Whether we actually state that warranting assumption or we don't, we offer some more backing, some more support that gets to that particular point we're trying to make. A modal qualifier. This is a rhetorical device, a rhetorical tool. You don't want to assume everything, right? Whether it's all of one side of an issue or people that believe in a side of an issue are this, that, or the other, right? You don't want to do that. So you want to have these modal qualifiers, these words or phrases that limit the scope of the claim. So things like, most, usually, always, sometimes, most of the time, right? You're still saying that it's not every single instance. There are always exceptions, right? But you're providing that modal qualifier, okay? So an example, for most students who are facing one of the worst job markets in recent history, this type of payment can be difficult at best. Okay. And the last thing is the rebuttal, which is another word really for that counter-argument. I mentioned that in the last video, how you have to take stock of and account for and refute the counter-arguments, the other side to what it is you're arguing for. And a rebuttal does that as well. It's just another word for it. So a statement that refutes an opposing or other claim. Even in carefully constructed arguments, counter-arguments will still exist. They always will, because somebody can always come at the other side of it. The con to the pro to the con, right? These counter-arguments need to be addressed and refuted to further strengthen your argument. This process often involves providing yet more support and evidence. So with academic writing, the big thing is drawing on support, of incorporating sources, utilizing sources, having them work to your advantage to forward whatever point it is that you are trying to make. Okay. The tricky part is making sure that the sources aren't speaking for you, that they're taking the place of your voice and what it is that you are claiming in the piece, right? But you're using them to supplement your thoughts and ideas. So an example of this rebuttal. Though some may argue that there are numerous forms of non-loan financial aid available to keep tuitions low, some forms of financial aid, such as tuition discounting, whereby students are given discounted or prorated tuition based upon economic need, actually is responsible for 27% to 32% of the increase in college tuition. And we have our source there. Okay, so you provide the other side to what it is you're arguing, but then you refute it, okay, in some sort of way. And the other interesting thing here is if I were to read all those statements, which I will here in a sec, if I'm going to read all those statements one after the other, we haven't talked too much about introductions, right? So, okay, well, how do I start my piece? And how do I structure things so that it builds towards what is it I'm going to say throughout the entirety of this piece? How do I develop the context and the background and do all those kinds of things? If I read this and go down the pyramid here of Toulmin's argument model, that helps provide a sense of an introduction, right? You're giving us the context, you're providing us the entirety of the argument, you're giving us a sense of the background that's there, and all of this would encompass. The thing that's maybe missing is just the thesis statement that in this paper, this is what I'm going to argue, and how I'm going to argue for it, and what are the main things I'm going to draw upon, and here's why you should care, and here's why it's significant, all those things. But this does form a type of introduction in a sense. So let me read through all those bolded sections right here and see if you can get a sense of the flow of how this could potentially be an introduction almost to an essay. The cost of college tuition should be more affordable. In 1978, a student could attend a state-run university for approximately $2,450 a year. Today, at the same institution, a student will pay $30,000 a year, which is an increase in college tuition by roughly 1,120%. The cost of college tuition puts students into large sums of debt for long periods of time. According to CNN, out of the survey of more than 1,000 colleges, 98 colleges said their 2010 graduating class owed an average of more than $35,000, and 73 colleges reported that more than 90% of students graduated with some amount of debt. For those owing $35,000 and looking to pay their tuition debt within 10 years, they will need to pay approximately $300 to $400 a month depending on interest rates. For most students who are facing one of the worst job markets in recent history, this type of payment can be difficult at best. Though some may argue there are numerous forms of non-loan financial aid available to keep tuitions low, some forms of financial aid, such as tuition discounting, whereby students are given discounted or prorated tuition based upon economic need, actually is responsible for 27% to 32% of the increase in college tuition. And then the thing that would follow would potentially be your thesis. Throughout this paper, the researcher will discuss right? So it's not exact, but that is something as far as going down this triangle, really sets up what it is you're going to be looking at arguing in many ways throughout the entirety of a paper. So it's another form that you could potentially put in to crafting an introduction as well. So it has that dual purpose. So again, get a sense of that. Let me know if you have any questions pertaining to that. See how that might apply. What is the claim I'm making, and what are some ways I could back up and support that, and what are some of the counter arguments, and what am I assuming here, and what am I not assuming? Maybe have those in the back of your mind as you're going through and doing your particular argument. And then when you're writing it, just maybe put those things out of your mind a little bit, get the information down, get a draft going, and then go back to this, because you can see underneath I've put, okay, look at your inventing arguments essay. State the claim that you've made. Look at your inventing arguments essay. Identify what evidence and support you provide, etc., etc. Okay? So don't necessarily do that first, but after you've written the draft, go back and see, are those things there? If they're not, where could I include them? How can I include them? Okay? Any questions, comments, concerns, as always, feel free to contact me. Okay? Thanks.